We're super excited today to have a guest on the channel that is a friend. I've had the pleasure of working with him over the last few years in many different musical situations. He's got a lot going on. He is one of those people who is resilient and has produced and done a lot of different things in the music industry. And we're honored to have him, our friend Nick Milo.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks for having us, Nick.
You know, just thinking, you said a few years, and I think it's more like 20.
20 years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We were talking about those early days with Trouble Man, that band.
That's right.
And Yogi Lanich was the other guitar player. But yeah, 20 years, man.
Yes.
Time flies.
Yes. But we've had such great times in all those 20 years, and
we have.
I'm grateful for that.
Oh yeah, man. Thank you.
We're here to talk about moments of inspiration and the moment of creation and how we get from one to the other. And so, Nick, I want to ask you about your moment of inspiration and how does creativity show up for you most of the time? What kind of compels you to write music and to be creative, and what's that process like for you?
Yeah, interesting. For me personally, it stems from my urge to play music, and me being, first of all, a pianist. And I was moved at a very early age, like when I was first learning how to play, and I got inspired by all kinds of music. Jazz and rock and roll. I mean, we're talking early 70s, you know, and you look on, I love this, just Google a month between 1970 and 1970, whatever, 5, just 1 month, and you can see like 100 albums, probably many more, but at least 100 that are classic albums. There was just so much coming up, so I was very fortunate, and also having older siblings, my sisters in college and my brother in high school when I was, and my mother was a piano teacher, so I would wait for her to finish teaching, and I would go into the piano room, and the first thing I would do, and she would yell at me later, practice your lesson, you know, but I would turn the lights off and I'd play in the dark. So what does that refer to now in my life? Sometimes just to start with a motif, it could be one note, it leads to another note, it leads to another, and then that opens up, something emerges from that. Not always, but we also are able to record ourselves now, so I keep musical diaries, and I try not to think about it. I just play and whatever, and this is with no assignment, which is the really hard thing to do for me, is to have no assignment. It's almost impossible, actually. So if somebody comes to me and says, I'd like to write a song about such and such, or let's do a score for something, or I got this band and let's do some grooves for the band, that's immediately an assignment. Like it's a narrower road, and that's so much easier to work off of. So it's interesting to play freely, and what moves you, try to contact that. And I was doing that at an early age. I mention that because you don't really learn to compose that way, but you fall in love with music that way. And then later on, there is the process of orchestration and developing arrangements, and then, you know, I was able to grow up in a studio scene that computer generated recording studios were happening. I mean, I remember even before there was digital audio, right? I'm that old. So you can rehearse. I was fortunate to be a part of good music programs in Illinois, in Ottawa, in high school, and then the University of Illinois in college. And So I was part of bands and part of orchestras, and when you in rehearsal, you can isolate a section, do a sectional, and you can do that. You have to do that when you're working. Think about it in as if it was all individual lines. So anyway, that's getting more into composition and counterpoint and voice leading and all that, which for me becomes at an early age. I think harmony was the first thing that attracted me, and that's why I like to say now, the last album the last two records that I've been on is my trio record, and the most recent album for East Bay Soul with Greg Adams called The Real. And in both projects, I was working on melody, really trying to make a melody.
That's where it all starts, right?
Well, I was attracted to the architecture of music, and I love, like, for example, doing bridges. I love bridges. And the first song I wrote with Tower Power was on the album Monster on a Leash. Yeah, was A Little Knowledge. And they already had the song finished. Actually, I wrote the lyrics for that one too, the verse. And that was months later. I called them up and said, hey, what's going on with that song? Dana Myers and Zeke Zerngabel. And they go, well, we don't have any ideas for the verse. But getting back to it, they had the chorus, they had the groove, and they said, Nick, will you write a bridge? And on the bridge, Tower Power's the horn section, one of the main ingredients. And I designed this as a duet between the guitar and the horn section. So they go back and forth. And I remember I was real nervous the first time I played it for Greg Adams because we were just new. I was new in the band. And he said, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll go with that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. The bridge, it takes you harmonically on a little ride, and then it sets you back down again into the groove, into the song. And so there's a little departure, and I love that aspect of it, and that comes from a fascination with harmonic structure. And I remember in one of my teachers in college critiqued me and said my weakness was melody, and he was right. I could improvise for days. I played for the dance department. I played in, and the idea of improvisation and stuff. But I was young, and I didn't even now. How can you improvise on a song if you can't play the melody? When we're young, we're fascinated by certain aspects of music, and also typical youth orientation is that I do what I'm good at, and I like it now that I don't have that. I actually work on what I'm horrible at. And it's frustrating, of course, So anyway, but that's how you make progress. And like learning a song, we played the gig together in Culver City at the Backstage Bar and Grill with Chris Rocha. And Chris would sometimes the day of or the day before, he would email everybody and with 2 or 3 songs and say, hey guys, just check these out. And I love that aspect of it. Because now, I don't know, how long would it take you to learn a song? It took me about 2 or 3 times through.
15 to 20 minutes.
I got this, yeah. So you could learn 3 songs in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that when I was younger. So what does that mean? I think it means, what is the essence of a song? The first thing is the melody, and the second thing is the harmonic or the bass. Somebody said once, I heard recently, learn the top and learn the bottom, and then you can kind of fill in the rest. Now, depending on what kind of music it is, there's all beautiful things happening in the middle too. how many arrangers are there that are trombone players? And my theory about that is, because I played a little trombone when I was growing up.
Nice.
But the thing is you're sitting in the middle of the frequency spectrum, right? And so you kind of get a sense of what's going on around you, what's up above, what's below, because you're kind of in the middle. Who, with Tommy Dorsey, Johnny Mandel, I think was, a bunch of people. I mean, you have to know what your role is, what your part is, but to know the song, that was my point about the top and the bottom, to have a sense of the whole architecture of it. And what they say about a song, if it's a really good song, you could get it across with just the melody, if it's singing, the voice and a guitar, or a voice and a piano, or whatever, a voice and the bass. If it's a really good song, it will still hold up. Now, you can also create a whole orchestral arrangement of it, but the material, the creative material of it.
As far as musical development, when we're kids, we know that desire to do something is there, but when we actually sit down and learn things that help us, get better musically, we're not really thinking about that as kids. We're just learning the chords, and then if we're learning a song, for example, to go play with a band or whatever, we learn the parts and we just go play them, and we play those parts. We don't,
right.
We don't.
And as opposed to learning the whole song,
we can't put our own into it, and we're not at that stage yet, But the cool thing is that we recognize that there is a form of magic in that, that can grow more spiritually with us too as we grow into the music more, and finally, when we get better at what we do, we're able to think of that music as blocks instead of chords, like an 8-bar phrase or 16-bar phrase or whatever.
Yeah.
And then if we're in a situation with musicians who are at our level as well, and we're all listening and playing together, that's when the magic starts to happen.
Yeah, I want to understand the whole so that I can listen to everybody else and respond to that. You don't want to just be so focused on your role and your assignment. I mean, actually, that's not music, right?
Yes.
The music comes from when we listening together. And that's, you asked me to do this interview. I was thinking about what I wanted. There's one very simple thing I want to talk about that it's helped me through the years. And that is a teacher said to me very early on, a spiritual teacher actually, said the key to creativity is observation. I think that's true with a lot of things. Composing for sure, playing with a group for sure, teaching absolutely for sure, because in order to participate you have to observe. So let's just take that for the bare bones thing. If you're going to write music and you want some inspiration, well, go out and listen. I read a book on writing by Stephen King called On Writing. Great book. And one thing he talks about is if you're going to write, read. You have to read. If you're going to be a musician, you have to listen. And I mean, I know like guys, Herman Matthews, the drummer in East Bay Soul, he's in his van and he's constantly going through music, listening to music. I've ridden in the van with him. It's fascinating. Actually, Dell's the same way. Dell Atkins, the bass player, and all kinds of music. But anyway, go and observe and see what, Beethoven, they say, used to go for walks. And that's a good thing. Walking is really good because it changes your system, changes your breathing.
Yes.
So all this kind of relates to a certain spiritual thing too. And being able to listen, by the very definition of the word, I think it means to transcend yourself, to listen, to be a part of the whole, and
be open,
yeah. Yeah, be
for
open.
things to channel through you, you know, after you've listened to so many things and built up a vocabulary and a library of stuff in your head and your heart, hopefully.
Yeah, that process, it's never ending.
That's true.
Like I was saying to you guys, you know, I mean, maybe this is a little premature to be talking to me, because like maybe come back in 10 years and I'll have more to talk about.
No.
But which I will. Everybody who knows me knows one of my favorite quotes is by Pablo Casals, the great cellist. At 90 years old, somebody asked him, "Why do you practice?" And he said, "Well, I think I'm making progress." So that's when I'm making progress, you know. But here's the thing too about musicians is the reward is immediate for us. That's why for some of us it is kind of hard to keep making money. You got to really focus on making money sometimes. You know, go out and get the gigs or whatever, but whether you got a gig or not, whether you got the money or not, you're still going to play music. Or maybe you take a break for a while, because that could be good too. But after a certain amount of time, I'm still at the point in my life where I kind of need to play. I mean, I need to work. Play and work. Those two words I use interchangeably.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I think it's great. I think it's great that we have sort of an addiction that happens from the joy of realizing that this is kind of fun and this is creative and we're being creative and we almost feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, you know?
Yeah, the idea of immediate reward, it's actually not quite immediate. What I was saying before about working on weaknesses or just enjoying the practice, for me what happens is you make a little, like you're working on something. It could be fingering, it could be technique, and it becomes easier. There's like some progress is made. There's a feeling, that reward feeling, I feed on that for the next, month.
Yeah,
That moment, it goes, oh, okay, this is great. And then you go back into it. There's these kind of light bulbs that go off. And that's part of the creative process, And sometimes it isn't working. And that's when I think sometimes you need to take a break. I like to use the example of tying a knot, or untying a knot, actually. If you pull the wrong ends, you'll just make the knot tighter. Sometimes you got to let go and then go and grab the right end and pull it, and then the whole knot just comes undone. So letting go is part of the process sometimes, instead of pushing all the time. And of course, if you're on an assignment with a deadline, you don't have that luxury sometimes. But you can do it, trick yourself into it, like maybe just go make a cup of tea or go for a short walk or whatever, and then come back,
It seems like it's essential for us to be able to let go and take those little breaks, when we feel like we've maybe been working too hard on something, or, just to clear our heads, so when we get back to it, it's fresher.
Have you ever had the experience of dreaming music?
Yes.
And then I talk about this or I have talked about it. I do these house concerts, these solo concerts, and there's a song that I kind of wrote while sleeping on an airplane. A melody was coming to me, and I've had the experience before too. Sometimes it would just be a part. Like I remember working on a score years ago, and there was a groove thing that was not working, or it needed something. And in my dream, I dreamt a tambourine part, and I went in the studio, woke up, went in the studio and put it down. I was like, yes, that's it. That's perfect. So the song I wrote, it's on the trio record. It's called Brazil in New York. And I was on a flight from New York to LA. And after seeing some Brazilian friends play, and this melody came to me while I was sleeping on the plane. Anyway, lucid dreaming, I haven't really studied that, but it does happen. The music comes in.
It does happen. I think also because you're sort of in a relaxed state too, or your subconscious has been thinking about something but hasn't quite found it yet. You know, when you totally relax and you're in that dreamy state is when it shows up for you. You know, and that's the magical moment. That's another magical moment. So that's exciting. That's one way that motivates you to write music, to create music. You know, is when you get these ideas.
Part of the build on what's, you know, the good ideas. I do just want to mention, anybody knows this who is a creative person, not just a musician, but if you're a writer or making film or dance or whatever, that there's a lot of trial and error that goes along, and you have to know when to let go or just release. Sometimes you have to go through a series of ideas before you get to the one that's going to end up being the song or the idea. And that's all part of the fun. And if you're working, there is no wasted motion. I think the Stephen King book talks about that too, but a lot of people talked about that. I mean, there's a phrase, 90% of anything is BS. And with the creative process, you got that 10%. But that's if you have a discipline. My mom, I mentioned, was a piano teacher. My father was an athlete and a coach. And as I got older, I realized that the thing that was keeping me in the field as a professional was the discipline that I got from my father.
Nice.
The workout and the work ethic. You know, my mom had it too, but I really got it from my dad. And where you just want to go out on the field. You want to get back to the keyboard. You want to get, you know, and hit it some more. Come home from a gig and play some Bach for a while, you know.
No.